What personal care products did you use today? Deodorant? Maybe some lotion? Makeup? Something in your hair? Have you ever looked on the back to see what it's made of? If you haven't, all good. Most people don't. But you probably should. In the US, personal care products are largely unregulated, and some scientific studies suggest that certain ingredients may be linked to disease and birth defects. Efforts to force manufacturers to use safer ingredients have failed for decades, until this year. Enter California. They just regulated the personal care products industry.
Over the last 80 years, cosmetics regulation and laws governing how safety is ensured for those products has largely been untouched. The first law that set up, it was called the Cosmetic Safety Act, that was set up in 1938, has not been changed, amended, expanded in any way since that time.
I talked to Susan Little at the Environmental Working Group, an activist organization that advocates for health and environmental protections. Since 1938, legislators have updated all kinds of regulations. Think about cars, medicine, even the internet. But in the case of personal care products, time and time again, the industry successfully lobbied against removing potentially harmful products or increasing oversight of what they sell to you.
Very well funded, has lots of, they have plenty of lobbyists to represent them, and they have successfully fought off regulation, especially more regulation at the federal level.
You probably know that the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, regulates drugs, medical devices, and vaccines. But the agency also has authority over cosmetics and many personal care products. They can set safety standards and make sure products meet them, but they haven't in many cases, and EWG thinks it's all that lobbying from the industry.
There's no requirement that the manufacturers prove safety, that the products that they're selling are actually safe. They don't have, unlike drugs and, even over-the-counter products, manufacturers don't have to prove safety when they're creating these different skin creams or whatever it is that we're using.
So, some state lawmakers and advocacy groups in California decided to try and do what the feds aren't. Make a law that prohibits certain harmful ingredients in personal care products.
It should be a no-brainer to most people that, why wouldn't we want to protect women, men, children from toxic chemicals that we find in products that we apply directly to our skin, to our bodies on a day-to-day basis. But, they are, the cosmetics industry is a powerful lobby. There's an arm of the cosmetics industry, the Personal Care Products Council, that heavily opposed this bill. They enlisted the California Chamber of Commerce that joined them in opposing this bill. And they actually succeeded in killing the first version of my bill. Initially I introduced this bill in the beginning of 2019. That bill died in committee. I couldn't get enough votes to get it out of committee.
California Assemblyman Almaret Suchi wrote the Toxic Cosmetics Act. After failing to get enough votes in 2019, a second attempt this year in Sacramento paid off. The powerful lobbies flipped, and no one voted against the Toxic Cosmetics Act. It bans 12 ingredients from being used in personal care products sold in California. Things like formaldehyde, certain types of phthalates and parabens, and a family of toxic chemicals called PFAS. This group of 12 is a small portion of the 88 potential carcinogens and reproductive toxins the California Health Department says have been used in more than 70,000 products since 2009.
So one of the main arguments that the cosmetics industry waged in opposition to my bill was, the argument that we should let scientists instead of politicians decide what chemicals are toxic, what chemicals should be banned, what products should be banned. Our argument ultimately became, if you can manufacture and sell the products in Europe, then why don't California consumers deserve those same protections?
I did ask them. Karen Ross is the VP of Government Affairs for the Personal Care Products Council, a group that represents brands.
We opposed the original bill because of the details in the bill and how it was broadly written and broadly impacted, and that the business community and industry wasn't a part of it. But I think that our willingness to come to the table shows that industry was not opposed to new regulations, but wanted to be a part of that process and a part of that stakeholder dialogue.
All of the chemicals California banned had already been prohibited in Europe, over concerns they could be harmful to consumers. So, in many cases, manufacturers already had adjusted recipes. They just weren't selling them in America.
You should not have to be an expert in chemicals and chemistry in order to buy shampoo. And that's just point blank, right? And what the system that we have now is putting all of the onus on the public instead of the companies to actually prove that this is safe, right? So we have to prove that this is harmful more than they have to prove that it's safe to put it to the markets.
Norbese Flint with Black Women for Wellness points out the bill will be especially relevant in Black communities. Data from Nielsen shows that of the $63.5 million spent on ethnic hair and beauty aids in 2017, $54.4 million was spent by the African American community. That's more than 85%.
We live in a society that upholds Eurocentric views of beauty. And so the closer you are to straighter hair, lighter skin, that it actually does have some type of social and racial capital that can get you closer to different access points. There's all these external factors that come into the ways in which we use these products and why the products are actually toxic, right? So some of it is because we can make stuff a little bit better. And some of it is because they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, which is bleaching your skin or permanently straightening your hair.
Banning 12 chemicals is just part of the story. Think again about what personal care products you've used today. Look at the ingredients on the back, and on many of them, you'll see fragrance. No surprise, you want your stuff to smell good. But according to another bill just passed in California, fragrance is just a cover word that represents a slew of other ingredients manufacturers aren't specifically disclosing. Senate Bill 312, also signed into law this year, eliminates companies' ability to conceal ingredients under the generic term fragrance.
It requires that manufacturers disclose to the state and on the product label the ingredients, the fragrance ingredients, if they have been identified as being potentially toxic to the human, to people. So that's a great disclosure bill.
So if you're in California, there's moves to get safer products on the shelf. But other states, relying on federal protections and FDA oversight, are stuck in 1938. And it's not because the FDA doesn't think things should change. Emails obtained by the Environmental Working Group through a Freedom of Information Act request show back in 2015 and 2016, FDA scientists wanted a federal ban on formaldehyde, a harmful ingredient used in popular Brazilian blowout hair treatments. Formaldehyde's one of the ingredients now banned in California. Senators Dianne Feinstein and Susan Collins have tried to get a national toxic chemicals bill passed. It would review 5 chemicals and give the FDA the power to recall harmful personal care products. The bill hasn't gained significant traction.
We're hoping that this can be a model for our federal government to pass the regulations, pass the protections that all American consumers deserve from toxic chemicals in personal care products.
California is a big state, so it may be that until a new federal law is passed, other states might benefit from the Toxic Cosmetics Act. That's if manufacturers decide to follow the new laws across the board, instead of selling 2 versions, one for California and one for everywhere else.
Listen, California does tend to lead. And so we would expect that states may look at this issue next year. Again, I think that's something that we take into consideration, but really the science and safety of ingredients and products is the cornerstone for everything that industry does. And so when we see proposals, we take them back to our companies and they look at it from a manufacturing standpoint. And there are a number of factors that they would look at the bill and analyze the bill for impact.
As far as updating laws, Ross says none of the PCPC member organizations have initiated the process to mimic the California bill in other states. She also says legislative priorities for next year are still in the planning stage. If you're now wondering about the products you use, what can you do? A couple quick thoughts. First, find a brand that's being transparent about what ingredients they're using in their products. This may mean you'll have to be a little more intentional about where you shop, but at least you'll know what you're buying. Second, actually look up ingredients you're not sure about. The Environmental Working Group, the California Health Department, and PCPC have all created different databases you can type the hard-to-say names into and learn about potential health effects.